Entrepreneurs often say that overnight success takes 10 years. In Paying It Forward, in 1 hour, we will ask the most successful entrepreneurs what they learned during a decade. But this is too easy. ملا الانتربرنوري سبيس سيدو السوتشيس matul الليل يهو 10 سنين. By joining, you will unlock the secrets to leadership, growth, business expansion, and beyond. Each episode will give you a front row seat to their success, their story, and what made them special. What is... Stay tuned, everyone. Paying It Forward. And why did we decide to call this conversation Paying It Forward? Paying It Forward is our way to empower people through allowing them to empower others. So what we mean by that, we're working constantly with different kind of founders, different kind of people that have a capacity of collaborating with a large audience and have like a great impact. So our thinking is we want to work with founders, we want to help other founders, and the best way to do that is to allow them a community of similar-minded people. So this is how we're trying to do it. We're trying to have one exceptional speaker per month that we're flying them over to Malta, that the goal is to support our local ecosystem, to support Maltese founders. But at the same time, the goal is to record these amazing conversations and then try to export this with all founders from anywhere in the world. So since we have today with us the amazing Ganesh Barbaris, I would love to get through his opinion and his perception on what does it mean to pay it forward.
I think paying it forward, when you're a founder, you've often built a company and someone gave you an advice that was incredibly valuable without asking anything in return. And building a company is very difficult for a lot of reasons. And every now and then you need that one person that helps you and it will change your life. That could be an advice, it could be a ticket, it could be a client introduction. It's very important that founders keep doing that to other people, because this allows the community to keep on going. And I think in smaller groups, in smaller ecosystems, for example, like in Malta, the amount of opportunity of someone paying it forward is statistically smaller. There's just less founders. But one of the things that I've often seen on founders is paying it forward is a quality that is, I will give you everything, I'll go on a call, I'll do what it takes to make you successful. But make sure that we do that for the other generation, because one person helping two helps four, etc., etc. So paying it forward is helping without any return, any expectation of. It takes a lot of maturity. When an ecosystem is not early, everything's transactional. I do this, you do that for me. Paying it forward has nothing to do with it. And I think that creates strong ecosystem, and that's what makes a huge value for founders. I give you just one example so that I'm very, very practical. When I built my first company, Supercharger, first time around, I had a great mentor. His name was Hui, still is Hui. And I really didn't know anything about startup. My first company was fully bootstrapped. We started from scratch. I was 26. And he was a big mentor to me. And one day I asked him very shyly, would you like to be my advisor? I said, yes, of course. What do you have in mind? Right? I said, yeah, I'll give you shares. And he said, what do you have in mind in terms of shares? And I said 6% or 8%, I can't remember what it is, sub 10. And he looked at me and said, but you're an idiot. It doesn't make sense. This is not what advisors get. Advisors get 0.2, 0.5. And ever since, I've always helped other founders to realize this. So I think those elements of paying it forward and bringing that piece of advice to someone else going forward is incredibly valuable. And I think that's something that we need to do. And mature ecosystem can do that very often.
So Janusz, what is one of the best advices that someone gave you in the realm of your founding or your entrepreneurship journey?
There's a lot. I think what I got to see is different advice takes at different stage in your company, unfortunately. And that's some of the complexity of you being a founder is someone may tell you something that is incredibly true, but right now this is not the fire or the battle that you're fighting, and therefore you're not listening to it. There are many things, for example, fundraising. Fundraising is perhaps one of the games that most founders always try to measure themselves against. It is a measuring stick of how you can build your company, no doubt. But often founders very much get it wrong, the power dynamic with an investor. You give an opportunity to an investor, and that opportunity is for them to make a return that is much higher than what they could otherwise have. No, there's no guarantee, because if you were in the business of guaranteeing a return, you wouldn't be doing a startup, you'd be doing a hedge fund. So remember that you are the one selling the equity, they're the one buying. That is a very important in the dynamic. And being convinced that when you look at someone, you go, if you invest one, you are generally getting someone that will do whatever it takes to get to 10. That power dynamic is a super important one. So please have that. The second one that I had over time is don't be shy. When it works, double down on it very quickly. Imposter syndrome in founders is quite true, but that's normal. It's not negative. It's just because it's the very first time you're doing something, and therefore every single step you take is one step towards something that you haven't done before. But it doesn't make you an imposter. It makes you someone that is incredibly bold. And I think having that confidence that in being an imposter is just you being very rational is important. The last one that I had, which actually came from Hui, is founders are not reckless. They take risk, which is very different. Yes, we believe in a future that may or may not come, but we're not lying about it. We're not randomly saying it's happening. We think that there's a probability, 5%, 2%, 6%, 9%, that we're trying to improve to get there. Taking risk is not the same as being reckless. Being reckless is flipping a coin to make a decision. Founders don't flip a coin to make a decision. They make calculated risks and calculated bets. And I think that's a very important point for people to understand how founders react, and therefore when you talk to people, how you should negotiate with them.
That's amazing. And I think that I have already in mind at least another 10 questions. But before going there, who are you, Janusz?
So I think, it's, I'm a guy I came out of university. I wanted to get a job into banking. I studied law and finance. I couldn't get a job into banking because there was a financial crisis. And I'm 37 now, so I'm a millennial. And for those of you that are around that age, you may remember that a lot in the media, there was that topic that millennial as a generation are getting their future professional outcome cheated on, because we had less job opportunity, less career opportunity, less financial opportunity. And I therefore made a very short connection that finance has cheated my future. Therefore, I want to rebuild finance. Very simple statement. Unfortunately, because I'm very simple as a person, I said, therefore, let's rebuild finance. And how is the best to rebuild finance? One was being one of the first one to build a new challenger bank in the UK. And then I said, but how do you build other fintech businesses? And then we did a fintech accelerator. But I've always been driven by a ever so slightly higher purpose. And I really want to leave a mark in terms of building entire economies. That's what drives me. So I like building bridges. I like making connection to where other people never made them. Yeah, so that's. Yeah.
And I would like now to dig a bit deeper into that. Mm-hmm. If someone would ask, let's say, your mom or your girlfriend, mm-hmm. who is Janusz? What would they say?
I think passionate and genuine, but also unapologetic about doing what I think is right. I've always been lonely as a founder. They know it. They know that I always followed my passion. I've brought people in risky situations, sometimes including my family, but they've always supported me because they know that somehow I could be right. So yeah, I'm just unapologetic about the vision that I have. So I think that they would say, and yeah, genuine as well.
And do you also see that in yourself, that somehow you could be right? Do you also see that in yourself?
So that's the interesting thing, which is the second time around doing Supercharger now in EdTech, I don't need to think I know. As in, if I look what I've done in fintech, the majority of the fintech ecosystems in the world have been built on the back of the regulatory framework that I developed on my PhD. It's a fact. We had 39 companies, we had 3 unicorns. It's a fact. We had 39 companies, we had over 10,000 jobs created. It's a fact. And it was not luck, it was hard work every single day, working harder than anyone else, sometimes to the point of burnout, which was another story. But I know it's there. And I think what I've also realized as a founder is only surround yourself that really believe in the vision that you have. Anyone else, see them in 10 years from now. But only surround with people that believe that you're the right person at that time. It doesn't mean that the other person are bad people. It just means that they're not on the same wavelength as you. But as a result of it, don't spend time convincing people that don't believe in what you do. Put them aside, see them in 5 years, 3 years, it's okay.
But what about you, Janusz? Did you always believe in the same strength, in the same kind of level, in this vision, in this dream? Or do you see like when times are tough, maybe your belief becomes a bit lower?
No. The other advice that I always had for myself, and I said it to you a few times to founders, is when you build a company, you were gonna have the highs and the lows all the time, right? So that's a given. The only way for you to equalize the highs and the lows is you give yourself, in my case, which I think is statistically correct, 10 years. And you don't ask yourself the question the moment you start building your venture and you measure yourself in 10 years from now. Because if you measure yourself on a weekly basis, you will go insane as a founder. The notion that you have of time as a founder is totally distorted. Like if I think that, for example, my birthday was a week ago and we went to Saudi, we discussed with the government, we had a discussion with Malta Enterprise, we're about to launch the Festa, Alex closed the first investor deal, and that like it's in a week, like to the point of Elon Musk who said like, what have you done last week? I mean, we can write a book what we've done last week, but we forget these things. And the other thing that I tend to realize is whenever you get a good outcome, it's almost like a drug. So you get a big high, and then you crash down and you seek this high all the time. So the only way that I have to not doubt myself is I'm going to give myself 10 years. I've said it publicly, the 10 years is pretty much happening now. But you don't look back, because if you look back, it's painful. Only look forward, and you put then a meeting in your calendar 10 years from now and you see, am I where I want to be?
So where did you put yourself that you wanted to be in 10 years, and when is that deadline?
I think the deadline is more or less, I think it was last year in December, something like this. Where I wanted to be is I didn't want to struggle anymore as a founder. So, personally, you struggled.
Like in which way? Is it financially or is it personally, emotionally?
I think, look, financial struggle with founders are real. I haven't paid myself at one point for 4 years when we started Supercharger, which is difficult because it creates you a mindset of scarcity. You need, and therefore you cannot give because you don't have, and it's a complicated one. So financial freedom, not just stability, the capacity of saying, fuck it, like I'm okay, that's an important one, and I'm there now. Confidence, not having to beg to tell people what I'm doing, and not therefore to think that you're superior, but just think that you understand the value that you create, and therefore you only are okay to surround yourself with people that value you. There's an expression which is, if everyone likes you, no one likes you. I don't need friendships, I just need to be respected, and respected by fear or friendship, and that's having the confidence to say no is something that is very relieving. Because often as a founder, you always have the feeling that you're begging for something. No, you're not. And having that capacity of not feeling that you're begging is something that is incredibly valuable. And the third one, I think, is building a company that genuinely created value many and many times over again. Yeah.
And moving now a bit into the topic of today, which is what does it take to build an ecosystem? My first question is, as an employee, and then as an ex-founder, and maybe as an international as well, why should I care? Why should I care if an ecosystem is good or if it's not, if it's thriving, if it's not thriving, if people want to join it or if people want to leave it? Why should I care?
Okay, it's simple. Like as an employee, a healthy ecosystem is great because if you lose a job, you get another startup that hire you. Like at the end of the day, if you like working in a startup, you will want to find another startup. And the better the ecosystem, the easier it is for you to go from one company to another. And yes, it may sound counterintuitive for me to say this when I have some of my employees here, et cetera, but the point is, you know, a team needs to be highly efficient, and sometimes if in a company it doesn't work, you may be super successful in another company, and so be it. Be the most successful player in the other team if what it takes. So I think for employees, a good ecosystem means, you know, liquidity in the market, and you can go from one startup to another and progress faster and find opportunities. So I think that's what a good ecosystem is. What a good ecosystem is from an employee is if you get share options in a startup, if the ecosystem is healthy, suddenly that share option that you have is actually worth something versus just your salary. As a founder, why a good ecosystem is important from the point that we said, paying it forward. When you need advice, you'll find advice. Having investors that actually understand what investing is, and they're not randomly thinking what it is, and therefore they invest in you like they invest in stocks, which therefore saves you time. Because yes, fundraising is difficult, but it shouldn't take time to explain to someone what an investment in a startup is. And when it almost takes you longer for you to raise money and convince an investor, as opposed to build a product, this is clearly an issue. And as a founder, I think the support network, you know, perhaps some of you will ask those questions or will bring it up, but there are some very dark side of entrepreneurship, and who do you go to if you don't have a strong ecosystem? So I think having a strong ecosystem saves time, and time is incredibly valuable. It's valuable for everyone, not just for founders. It's valuable for employees, it's valuable for investors, it's valuable for the government. So that's why we should care of building a strong ecosystem. But unfortunately, ecosystems are, it's almost a public good. So who is responsible for it?
So who is responsible for it?
I think everyone is. Unfortunately, it's, you know, we perhaps at Supercharger, we are even more benefiting from being responsible for it, because when we bring companies in Malta, the more founders are around, the more successful the companies we bring are going to be. But also for the founders in Malta, the more helpful we can be to then expand or influence and capacity. We were in Saudi recently. I had a discussion a few years ago with the government in Qatar. They wanted me to build them a fintech ecosystem. I've built an incredible fintech ecosystem when I was back in Asia. And I said, yes, but if I don't have the basic of an ecosystem, i.e. educated people that understand startups, educated investors, people that want to work in startups, a government that understands it, I will bring you the best founder in the world, but it's like putting a Ferrari in the desert. I'm going to get stuck and I'm not going to move. You need basic infrastructure for an ecosystem to work. And that's highly important.
So let's take a step back. Before founding Supercharger in Malta, you had Supercharger 1.0 in Hong Kong, right? And you spent there a couple of years. I would like to understand from your perspective, both in fintech and in that region of the world, how did it evolve in the couple of years that you were there, and how is it now? And if you could have predicted how it ended up today back then.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's very simple. Fintech in Hong Kong 7 years ago was finance is also a very guy-centric industry, right? So when I say that is no disrespect for the ladies, but it was 6 guys around the table. The fintech ecosystem in Hong Kong, the third largest financial center in the world, gateway to China, was 6 people around the table, 6 guys around the table saying, let's do fintech. That's what it was. Today, fintech in Hong Kong is arguably 450, 600 startups, billions in funding, 10,000 jobs created, but also, frankly speaking, just better banks, more digital banks, and consumers that have more competition and better outcome. Did I believe that Hong Kong would get there? No, actually, I believe Hong Kong would have been even higher than what it is today. Singapore was able to claim a spot higher than Hong Kong, but it's still incredible what Hong Kong and where Hong Kong is today. Did I have the idea that Hong Kong would be that big? Yes, I had. I thought it would actually be even bigger, which eventually Singapore was.
But when you were there, like how did it feel? Like did you feel that energy in the air?
No, frustrating. Like, startups in Hong Kong 10 years ago is like, what is a startup? So is it like, what is a startup? Okay, what is fintech? Okay, so what is a fintech startups? So, when I landed in Hong Kong with a suitcase, I mean, it was pretty much a one-way ticket. I had to spend like 6 months to educate people. Like, okay, I'm going to educate people. Let me create the first fintech report on fintech in Hong Kong. This is the first book on fintech, so people can learn about it. I knew where Hong Kong was 5 years ahead of everyone where it was, and that's exhausting as a founder. Because for me, the future is here and I see it every single day. But a lot of people were not there yet. And the pain of building an ecosystem at the time was, how do you get all those people to come to you there? And I think the reality is, it took 10 years for everyone to understand it. And therefore, in the 10 years that it took everyone to understand what is fintech without a single doubt in Hong Kong, the question is, how do you build the personal and the financial resilience as a founder to last the journey? Because what kills founders sometimes is not that they have wrong ideas, is that they have the right idea way too soon, which is equally wrong. If you write too soon, you're still wrong because you'll run out of cash, right? So that's one of the things that I've learned, which is, had I been more resilient in fintech, and that's personally resilient because I had to stop the company because I got sick, etc. Today I would be at the top of an empire. But because I didn't have the personal resilience, I had to stop. The fintech ecosystem continued, it caught up, but the moment you left the treadmill, it's much harder to get back onto it. So
how do you link resilience with your health?
look, there's only two reasons why founders fail as a company. They either run out of cash or they give up personally. And giving up personally is either because you're mentally tired or you're physically tired. Founders don't give up. Like, they only give up when they run out of cash, or they give up because mentally it's too much. So that's how you link it. And again, look at people working in artificial intelligence, which is a big topic of today. People have been working on AI 30 years ago. Now, imagine you said AI is going to be the future 30 years ago, and now finally it's coming up. 30 years of believing that you are the right person to do it every single time. You need to be built a little bit differently. So that's how I link both.
Is it more naiveness or like being a visionary?
You need both. Naiveness will make you take risks and make decisions that you've never taken. It also will make you trust people that you never should have trusted, and therefore you made mistakes. But I think that there's something beautiful in the naivety of a vision. But why is the world not different? Why is finance not digital? Why is education not personalized? Why can't I have healthcare that is the cost of a subscription? That stupidity of making a statement. Why is there no book on fintech? Okay, let's do it. Why is there no course on financial technology? Okay, let's do it. Like, it's that simplicity of why not, just like as a kid says, and then not starting to think, oh, but what if I do this, the risk, etc. So there's both vision and naivety. Often goes together.
So maybe you can give us a bit more context into how big was the fintech accelerator that you had? What was the impact that you had on the startups and maybe the ecosystem as well?
The fintech accelerator that we had was 39 companies, 3 unicorns, I think a dozen Series B onward. So big, right? Job created over 10,000, funds raised in excess of, I think, 2 billion across all the startups. partnership with banks, it was mainly a B2B accelerator, 400 partnerships between the startups and the financial institutions. People impacted, I think I lost count, but at least 10, 15 million. On the course side, because we had to educate at scale people to understand fintech, right? 500,000 people in total between the course, the book, the academic paper, and the online stuff that we done, about 500,000 people. Yeah.
And I have a follow-up question to this, but I'm just being the advocate of the devil. This is how they say it.
Or the devil advocate.
Devil advocate, that's easier to say. So after all this success, have you ever had the thought that you have peaked?
No, because I made a lot of mistakes. If the first time around I would have had a perfect home run with the track record that I just said, honestly, maybe I wouldn't be here. I'd be just like retiring on an island. So the number that I always told myself is, if I had done everything right at Supercharger, I would have 200 million right now for me.
Well, Malta is an island.
I agree, but then I wouldn't be in an office. I would be at the beach directly. But so no, I haven't peaked. I also think that it's a journey. I also think that you measure yourself again after 10 years. No, and I always think that you can get better and better and better, which is perhaps when you're a founder one of the most difficult things. You're never satisfied. Like, I've never understood what it means to have trained 500,000 people. Like, it doesn't make sense for me as a number. Someone externally may go, holy shit, but like for me, it doesn't compute. When we, in the Malta program, have 650 applications, it means nothing because I'm already thinking about the next one. I never stop and think of what it has been, because I'm not there yet. I'm not here to write my memoir. So, yeah.
And when you say that at the beginning of your career, you felt like fintech has failed you, or finance has failed
Finance
you.
as well,
Yeah.
yes.
Why is that?
Because I was told to go to university, have a degree, and then you'll get a great job in banking and finally be able to have the career and the job that your mother expected.
And what happened? Why didn't you get that?
Because no one was hiring in finance. The entire financial industry was not hiring anymore. And who gets affected when no one gets hired? The juniors. The juniors don't get hired. The seniors keep their job. You have that expression, which is what? Last in, first out. Last one entering a company, first one leaving the company. This is exactly what happened in finance. So yes, I felt totally cheated. I had 2 undergrad degree. I believed that I was relatively smart. And I was doing interviews after interviews after interviews, and I kept on getting no. And I don't take things for granted, don't get me wrong. But I really felt cheated. And therefore I thought finance needs to be fixed. I mean, remember a little bit what happened with the Occupy movement in the street. Like, it's not just me. Is the financial crisis, like I think in the UK alone, for example, 500,000 people died earlier than what they were meant to because they couldn't get cancer treatment because the NHS funding went down, and therefore they had to change the schedule of seeing people. Like, society has been cheated. We laugh about real estate being unaffordable for young people. Still fucking is. Like, it's not right. So that's what I mean. It's not just me. It was just a genuine fight that I had against the system. It's like it's Don Quixote. And about the naivety, I thought let's go and do it. And unfortunately, it worked. The book worked. This worked. The startups worked, etc., etc. So that's why I have not a single doubt that I can do it one more time.
But let's look maybe at a parallel universe, right? That you did apply to some of these jobs, and you got in and you got accepted. Do you think that would have worked for you?
It's even worse than that. I've actually got accepted. So with all the complaining I have about the big companies, there was 2 things that happened that was incredibly funny. BCG. So I applied to BCG. I did the interview at BCG, and everything that could have gone wrong on an interview, a hiring interview at BCG, it was the case. And for those of you that know how management consulting interview works, they typically interview two candidates at the same time against each other, right? And first I arrived 1 hour late to the meeting, but not because I was late at the meeting, I was there in advance, but then I had my watch on the London time zone. Anyway, the thing was a mess, then I got upset, I arrived late, I don't understand why they're upset, but anyway, we arrived. The person doing the interview next to me, she gets really pissed off at me because she is like, her life is on the line, me too, but like, I just arrived. We do the interview, then we do the case study, and then the case study was, I had to advise a client whether or not they should reinvest in renewable energy. And we as a consulting firm have to give an advice to the client, right? Case study. She does it, I do it. We come up with the feedback, and my feedback is, yes, you should do it, but keep in mind that we should tell the client that because it's renewable energy, when subsidies of government stop, it might not be a good deal anymore. And then the partner at BCG looks at me and goes, no, you're totally wrong. But also you haven't asked whether the client, what industry do they have? Because if they operate 24/7, so it was a manufacturing, renewable energy doesn't work at night. Right? This was 8 years ago, right? And I respond to him and I go, yeah, but there's something called like battery storage, and you can store energy. Said, no, it doesn't work for industrial scale. And I go, well, I do happen to know someone that does a PhD on this, so yes, it does work. Anyway, I argue with the partner.
That's usually not a good indication.
No, and and then what happened? Yes, and then they ask me, so when could you start, right? The polite, so thank you very much. When could you start if you were to be selected? And I go, I don't know, maybe in July, but no later than September because I have to go back to university, right? And she goes, but no, but do you know that you were being interviewed for a full-time job, not a summer internship, right? And I go, okay, clearly I didn't prepare, they don't like me, they don't understood that I was applying for an internship, not a full-time job. I leave. 2 years later or 3 years later, my mother somehow kept an envelope of BCG that I opened, and it was under the drawer, and it was an unconditional full-time offer to join BCG.
Did she hide it from you?
Say again?
Did she hide it from you?
I don't know. Knowing my mom, she could have done that. But the thing is, then I had the second thing, which is there was a law firm, Morrison and Foster, which I've applied to when I was studying law, which my cover letter was how AI could be used in the legal profession to increase document discovery. And that was at the time when DeepMind the IBM Blue or DeepMind was working. So I said, let's use AI in the legal field, right? And this was my cover letter. Law firms will be disrupted by AI doing document discovery.
And what year was that?
Again, 8 years ago. It was when I started.
Okay, so it's not 2022, 2023.
No. And they didn't accept me, right? And anyway, I do the FinTech Accelerator. I build regulatory framework for fintechs. Law firms are kind of interested about me. And the first time I flew business class was them paying me a flight from London to Hong Kong to London for me to teach the client of Morrison and Foster about fintech in Asia and regulatory framework. And I had to do this. So when I arrived at Morrison and Foster, paid by them, when I started giving the keynote in front of the client, I said, thank you very much, Morrison and Foster, because if you ever had accepted my job application, I wouldn't be in front of you. I would be at the back of the office, most likely not in that room, working on contracts. And then the partner, the front side, was totally embarrassed because so this guy applied to us and we never hired him. So my point is, there's many paths. I'm talking of passage, right? There is many roads and forks that you can take. I'm happy of every single fork that I've taken. I've never looked back. And I think that's super important.
So from your experience and your path so far, what are the key foundations of a good ecosystem?
I think available founders. So enough founders that are in a similar stage as you. A pre-seed founder has a different problem than a seed stage founder and a Series A founder, right? So you need enough founders that are currently at the same stage as you, so that when you talk about a problem, they can relate immediately. That's super important. The second one, professional investors and professional advisors. People that give you 10K for 10% of the company, like they're not investors, they're sharks. Like, put them aside. Unfortunately, when you don't know better, you make that mistake. The problem is, once the company starts to be valuable, he doesn't want to argue that it was a mistake, you get upset, and then typically your company dies. Advisors, same topic. Advisors that are here to take half of a company for having a coffee, which, by the way, is a bad coffee, not helpful. And I think let founders do what they do best. Like, founders will find a path and will find a way. But I think, yeah, being professional and transparency. I cannot we cannot underestimate the value of transparency in an ecosystem. Whatever are side deals, private deals, exotic deals, run away from it. There's a reason why Y Combinator has created a safe, and the safe is a public document that can be downloaded on our website for anyone to use.
I really like that you mentioned Y Combinator.
Yeah.
So do you see Y Combinator as a competitor, as a partner, as an inspiration? What do you think about it?
Look, it's an inspiration, but I think it's not just an inspiration for Supercharger. It's an inspiration for any founder. Like, what Y Combinator has shown to you is, we often talk there's competition. It's not true. Like, you have the number one, and then you have whoever is after. And I think that when you build a company, this is where you should think yourself at. The gap that should be between yourself and the second competitor that you're against, that it shouldn't be a gap, it should be embarrassing how wide it is. And that's what it's so incredible about Y Combinator. There's 5,000 accelerators in the world. It's one accelerator that captures over 80% of the value of startups globally. It's something else. And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. But no, I think the insight that they give, look at Y Combinator, everything is public, a lot of the content is online, the insight that you get is fantastic. No, it's an inspiration. They've standardized things for the entire ecosystem. Great accelerator.
So then why do you think a startup should join an accelerator like the one that we offer, that Supercharger Ventures?
I think they should join because it increases their probability of success. But you have to believe it. Like, everyone is an adult and everyone can make a decision on joining or not. If you think that an accelerator will accelerate your chance of success, join it. If you don't think it's the case, talking to people and trying to convince them of the vision, don't join. It's okay. It's fine. Like, there's other people. So that's the reason why I think. So often founders are very binary. It's like, okay, what's in it for me? So, first of all, relax, but like, sure, here's what is it for you, etc., etc. But what I tend to see consistently is founders always say, I come for fundraising or whatever, and people leave, thank you very much for the community and the other 14 founders that I've met. People underestimate the value of being 12 weeks with other people that are solving similar problems as them. Incredibly valuable. But until you are in that room, you don't know the value of it.
And now, talking a bit more about founders, we collected some questions from the founders in this room from the program Passage that we're starting in Malta. Some questions are really, really good, much better than the one that comes to mind. So I will start reading from those.
Okay.
And then I would like to dig deeper into the ecosystem part, because I really think that this is one part that connects what founders want and what investors want and what the companies like ours want. So before that, I wanted to ask you, what are the top 3 mistakes that you made that you wouldn't repeat when creating a new venture?
Thinking that you're an imposter, it slows you down. If you think that you're an imposter, you therefore won't take bets and you will slow down. So no, you're not an imposter. You're someone that is building its path. That's important. Not paying yourself. I've made that mistake. You need to have a level of financial stability. And whoever tells you as an investor, no, but you already have equity in the company, says, yes, it's my equity, by the way. So it's not that you're giving me equity on top of a salary. It's not a compensation. It's mine. I'm selling it, by the way. Right? So paying yourself, incredibly important, because if it takes you 10 years to be successful, then have 10 years of salary to get there. And then the third one is saying yes too genuinely. Founders, it's not that I need validation, but I want to get stuff done. And sometimes I've said yes too soon when I think I should have someone external that counterbalances that to me, which is the value of having a strong advisory board. Because very often as a founder, people in front of you know that you're the final decision maker on that chain of command. And as a result of it, the buck stops with you. And it's very difficult to say no or yes. And therefore, having an advisory board and having governance so that you have to discuss a decision can be incredibly valuable. It relieves your mind.
I have a small personal story about some of the mistakes that you mentioned when I had my own startup, which is first about not paying myself. And then second about basically about your startup and your imposter syndrome. So I was dating a girl back in 2022. And then when I told her about what I was doing, I explained to her that I had my own business. And I did a mistake at not explaining to her that it was a startup. So she thought that I was rich. So sadly, that ended up very quickly when I told her that I don't get a salary from, I haven't got a salary in 2 years. So that was very interesting, discovering the impact that not having a salary could have. But then you were talking about the chain of command, and then I have a follow-up question regarding that. So what is the most underrated role to hire in a company?
I think for a founder, a very good chief of staff or secretary that helps the founder get stuff done.
Really? Secretary?
Yeah. The problem that I've always had my entire life, well, my entire life sounds like a big statement, but I often do a lot and I get overwhelmed, and I wouldn't really need someone that can pick up the phone for me and do my emails. And it's simple, but it's so fucking valuable. So fucking valuable. And that I've always seen it as a luxury. Right? No, but I can have someone doing coding or marketing or thing. It's not a luxury, it's a help that I can have.
But is there a specific stage when this comes in?
It depends how you're wired and what you need. But for me, I should have done it 8 years ago. And that's incredibly valuable. Yeah.
So then my next questions are related to the ecosystem. And these are mostly questions from the founders that we're supporting now, but I think they're relevant for anyone listening to this or watching this. So first of all, what can we do to support our ecosystem? As a founder, as an employee, as a good citizen, like what can we do to support this ecosystem and make it grow?
What we said at the beginning, paying it forward. I think you know what you can do at the end of today for those of you that are here, which is, here's the problem that I have, how would you solve it? And then founder to founder, you'll get the advice from it. And start doing that and training that, paying it forward muscle. Super useful. I think that's the single best way.
And in your opinion, what is the most important thing that is currently missing from, let's say, the Malta ecosystem in terms of founders, entrepreneurs?
There's not enough people. Doing a startup and a startup ecosystem is a probability. Then we need more. It's a pyramid. To have one unicorn, you need 5,000 companies. How many startups do you have in Malta? 100. Let's say 200. Let's take an inflated number, like according to the organizer and the police, right? According to the police, 100. According to the organizers, 500. it doesn't matter. We're still 100x short. We need more people. We need more people to be willing to dare and to be bold. We need young people that will fail doing their first startup. It's okay, but go out and fail and do your second startup. We need that. We need parents that look at their child and go, yeah, it's fine, do this.
Or we need more international founders to come.
We need both, but the thing with international founders, and that's the reason why also Passage is so important, is, you have a very important expression, which is tourists always go home. And the international founder, if they don't make Malta their home, will go home. They get married, they have a kid, something else is happening. So you need to root them for a reason or another, right? Which is very important. So that's why having both is key.
So then from the other side, let's take the other side of the equation. What do you think is something super good in the Maltese ecosystem? I'm actually reading it word by word. So.
At least for me, whenever I come to Malta, I feel a little bit calmer. Like it's also because you're out of the office. I mean, for me, it's a little bit different, but I don't have to put a lot of effort to be able to take care of myself when I'm in Malta. I go out to take care of myself just because of the nature of what Malta is. The second element, which is I really believe it's an ambitious country. Does it have its quirks and problems and frustration? Yes. But it's an ambitious country. And the wind blows in the sail of that country, right? So
it's very windy here, yes.
But as a founder, again, it's putting the least effort, right? And Malta has that vision. And yes, is it difficult? And yes, are there frustrations? Yes, they are. Right? And we've all seen things that in Malta has annoyed us. But there's a genuine vision of making it happen. I don't think it's just PR. I don't.
So then, following a quick question on this, where do you see the ecosystem in 5 years?
In 20 of these offices across different people. Like, again, 5 years from now, let me take the growth rate. So Supercharger, for example, we just brought, so there's 28 companies which are looking at relocating, right? So 5 years from now, let's say we increase that 30% cohort on cohort, right? So it means that we'll be around 200 companies. That's just Supercharger. And we're not going to be the only game in town, and we shouldn't be. So if we had 1,000 companies in Malta, I think it's really achievable. 1,000 startups in Malta would be insane, would be super cool.
So let's say I was a founder that is just starting a startup, not incorporated yet, either here, in Italy, in Spain, or wherever. Do you think there are better countries to start a business?
Yes, the US.
Why?
Because again, if you want to surround yourself with people that do big things and have a bold vision and have understood what it is to see 10 years in the future and not think that you're lying to the investor when you say I can be $1 billion company because you genuinely believe and no one is asking you a question and go, let's do it. Yes, you need to go to the US. Now the question is, why do you start in Malta? Because I do think that you need to learn the ropes of doing a startup at the beginning, and it's okay to learn those ropes in Malta. So is there a better place to do a startup? Yes, go to the US tomorrow. Or actually go now, take a plane, like there might still be flights. But at the same time, not everyone is built to create a unicorn. And only very few founders have that drive, that ambition, and that capability of doing it. And therefore, if you don't have the ambition of building a unicorn, but you have the ambition of building a healthy, good, mean business, something that's going to be worth 50 to 100 million, Malta is good enough for you. And congratulations for building something which is worth 50 million. Congratulations. So I think it's more in which league do you want to play as a founder, right? You want to be in the NBA All-Star, go to the US. You want to be in the European Championship? I really think stay in Malta because you can really punch your weight in Malta.
Yeah, I completely see what you mean, and I think this is one of the misconceptions that first-time founders have, which they think, at least in my opinion, I used to think that the only league is the unicorn league, that I'm starting a business, so one day I will become extremely rich, or I will IPO or something like that. But in reality, the majority of people don't reach that way. So how can we be realistic with with how we want and we envision our company to be, and how does success mean to us?
Again, look at probabilities. How many people have done a unicorn from their first startups? A few. How many startups do you need to have one unicorn? 5,000. So Malta doesn't even have it. Like, my point is, I think try to also understand how big you want personally to be. And again, it's not downplaying your ambition, but be realistic. Like, again, if you want to build a company that is worth 10 to 20 million, you can stay, grow, and scale from Malta, no doubt. 20 to 50, I still think it's possible. 50 to 100, now you're going to start having problems, and you're going to be spending most of your time in planes to try to get the advice, the funding, and the people that you don't have here. 100 more, I don't know, please show me a startup that started here, right? And if they are, and they could be, and it's part of my ignorance, then let's have those founders here and share, how they've done it.
And following up on this, and I would like also to start a small interactive section now of this conversation. But before that, until I go pick up my cards, this is actually a good question, and it's free PR for us, and it was not me who asked it. So, so do Supercharger plan to foster more events/workshops for advanced and more mature startups? So until you answer that, I will go distribute the cards.
Look, the answer is yes. Also for us, it's more exciting. Like, as in, it's always great to be able to be challenged by later stage and growth stage founders. So yes, there's this ambition, there is that desire.
And then give it to the next person.
We will do it. The question is also availability of founders, etc. I think it's incredible to be able to have this group currently with us. So yes, we will do it. And again, it's part of it is paying it forward. So yes, absolutely.
So what is the thing that you enjoy the most about being a founder?
My freedom. Everything that I said I would do, I've eventually done it. Sometimes with 10 years delay, but I've always done it.
And what is the thing that you hate the most about being a founder?
The consequence of my freedom. It's very expensive it's very expensive in many ways to be free. Like, I can say fuck off to anyone that I want. No, but genuinely. Now, when you do this, it doesn't come without consequences. But my freedom to say I'm going to create my own job and sustain my family is incredible, but it's heavy. My freedom, no one will make me do what I don't want to do. No one. Because I want to work with people, and sometimes it means also refusing partnerships, refusing relationships. When I was in fintech in Hong Kong, for example, I used to tell my partners, if you don't want to grow 10x year on year, let's stop the partnership. It's okay. Right? So I think the consequence of my freedom is the biggest problem.
So talking about consequences, why would you do a program for free?
Because I don't know yet what Malta needs for Malta-based entrepreneurs. Like, the value that we will get is genuinely the value of you saying where you want this to go. So that's the reason why I think that program should be free. Today we have the luxury to be able to give back and invest in this. And I think it's the right thing to do. Eventually, yes, we will charge, but when we'll charge, it will be a no-brainer because the value will have been established.
And so what do you see it's next for you, Janusz, and for Supercharger?
I think for me, I'm okay where I am now. Like I just want to start enjoying the 10 years it took me to be where I am now. I didn't have the time yet to, a lot of great things have happened recently for me and I'm very happy, but I haven't been able to sit down and be able to enjoy what I wanted with family members, with a girlfriend, with my team, with my investors, with my co-founder. I haven't been able to do that. So I want to finally be able to stop and enjoy and agree that I deserve it. That's where I want to be. For Supercharger, I think we need to dominate everything. Like, I do genuinely believe that we can be one of the single best accelerator in the world. We need to keep on doing it, and nothing needs to stop us now. We've done enough to show it. So now it's about going everywhere, knocking on every single door, and working with everyone that wants to work with us.
Amazing. So for the last part of this conversation, I'm going to start collecting some of the questions that people have selected for you.
Okay.
And I will pick up one or two randomly.
Okay.
And then I really, really appreciate if you could open up and share anything that comes to mind regarding these.
Okay.
So I'll collect some of the questions. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, guys. No tips? No?
No, still, I take one.
Okay, randomly. So we have around 10 to 15 questions that are provided by the Diary of a CEO, which is hopefully us one day.
Which is not sponsoring us.
Not sadly, no? Okay. So let's start with first one, which is pretty short. What is your definition of success?
I think it's a satisfaction. You are successful when you're satisfied with yourself. And it's very hard to be satisfied with yourself. So it takes a lot of time to be successful.
And who is the person you would most like to say sorry to, but haven't?
So there's a group of people, for example. But as you guys know, I've done a lot on founders' well-being and founders' mental health. Some of the team members that I had, we had to let go because I was fighting certain fires. And I had to let them go not because of them.
What pain do you enjoy having?
What pain do I enjoy having?
Yeah, I wasn't the one selecting them. It was our amazing founders.
It's fine. What pain
Thank
do
you,
I
guys.
enjoy? What pain do I enjoy having? I don't know. I think the burden of trying to build something is really a burden, and I take it and maybe I do enjoy it. I do also think that, unfortunately, at one point, pain becomes a drug when you're a founder, and you put yourself in difficult situations to always solve them. So yeah, I'm not sure if it's a good answer.
And then the last question to end this conversation with, which I really, really appreciate your availability, your time, your openness. And I'm not saying this because you're my boss, but my last question is, are you happy?
Yes. Yes. I've always been able to do what I wanted to. So, I never had to compromise. As in, I never had to compromise for reasons which are not my choice. Yes, when I've done a 10-year career, not paying yourself for 4 years, having difficulties in fighting, yes, they were compromised, but they were compromised that I chose. So, yes, I am happy that I've always done what I had in mind, and I never regretted the act of not doing. You know, a lot of people say, but what if? There's no what if for me. I've always done, so I don't have any regret. So yeah.
Cool. So before we end this conversation with the Q&A of the founders of Passage, I would like us to give a big round of applause for Janusz.